All right. Hi. Hi, Briana.
Hi.
Hi, everybody. So
Hey, everybody.
welcome. I'm Julie Wolk, and I am super excited to do this interview today with the amazing Briana Kavanaugh, who is part of the Nourished coaching team. Woohoo!
Woohoo!
In a moment, we're going to dive into a conversation about how we can keep earning money with integrity during these wild times that we're in. And work with all the feelings and challenges that come up, right? Like the guilt, the fear, the shame, the scarcity, all the stuff that always comes up, but that is probably coming up even more now because COVID amplifies everything, as we were just talking about. But first, I want to introduce Briana and the program. So Briana is the owner of Bliss Your Money, a successful bookkeeping company for small businesses and entrepreneurs, and she's a financial bliss mentor. More on that in a moment. And I'm so honored that Briana is part of the coaching team in Nourished, my group coaching program, which is enrolling now and starting next month. So I'll tell you just a short version of what Nourished is all about. It's an immersive community and coaching program designed for hardworking and high-achieving, experienced coaches, consultants, and healers who want to transform a business that drains them into a business that sustains them. And that ultimately nourishes them on all the levels from financial to energetic. So we do this inside the program by helping folks slow down, set solid boundaries, and to develop offers that are rooted deeply in your gifts. But here's the thing. In addition to helping folks design this streamlined, simplified, scalable strategy for their businesses, which is totally my sweet spot and what I love to do with folks, I found over the years that there are actually, and especially now, given like what's going on in the world, that there are two other places where my clients consistently get stuck, and maybe this makes sense to you too. One of them is on implementation. So like I'm talking about things like crafting a resonant message, writing the copy, designing the website, like the visual branding and the actual marketing to get folks into their programs, right? The other video in this series features the leaders of Bold Women Brands, our in-house branding and marketing team. So we're going to talk about social media and marketing shoulds in that conversation. So definitely tune in for that one. So that's like the first place where people get stuck, implementation. The second place is limiting beliefs, right? And often those limiting beliefs are about money. Okay, like who am I to charge this much for my work, or how could I possibly earn $100,000 a year or $200,000 or more per year, right? Or like, what if my clients can't pay for this? And then there's other, general entrepreneur fears, like putting yourself out there and how scary and vulnerable that could be. So in Nourished, we're also helping folks manage or even dissolve their blocks, beliefs, and stories that can prevent even the best strategy from taking root. So that is Briana's gift. That's why she's joined our team and why I'm so excited. And just a little personal bit about Briana. I've known her for years, and I've been very positively impacted by what she brings to the entrepreneurial space. Like, first of all, she is a very deep, honest, no bullshit, brilliant woman. And she's truly one of those people who embodies like really deep spirit on the one hand, right? Like she's a powerful coach who can bring people into a very powerful and sacred space to truly transform their relationship with money. And she is also totally gifted in the practical world, right? Like she's been running a successful bookkeeping company for how many years now?
15
years. Okay. Yeah. Long time, right? So she's also got the practical side, like in spades. Okay. So Briana's helped me shift my beliefs around money, and I'm excited to talk with her today about making money in the time of a pandemic and a revolution, right? So we're going to cover sales and scarcity thinking and shame and guilt and all this stuff. So I'm excited for our conversation. But first, I wanted to have Briana introduce herself. And I thought, you can say whatever you want, but I thought maybe we could start with like, what does being a financial bliss mentor mean exactly?
Oh, it's a good question. So in my own financial journey, the reason I started doing this work is because money was super hard for me. And just super awful hard. I was a welfare mom when I started doing this work and figuring out, what the hell is going on with money and why, even though for example, like I was educated and worked really hard and all this stuff, why I wasn't making the money that I wanted to be and needed to be making, like how, even though I had worked in tech, I found myself on welfare. And in the tech bust now of like 2001, which is like forever ago. And at first I was like, I just want to feel better about money. And I feel like when my clients come to me, that's often they're like, oh, I just want to worry less. I just want it, I just want it to be easier. And then as I got into doing work around money, it led me to doing a lot of work around joy. And there's this deep connection between like joy and vulnerability. And you have to have, in order to do the work around money, there has to be vulnerability. And I feel like joy and then bliss is really where people are looking to go around their money. And I have a lot at some point to say about the sort of relationship between ecstasy and desire and money. But the idea is we need ecstatic states, we need blissful states in order to restore ourselves. And, I have this sort of constant imaging of what does it look like to actually have a blissful relationship with money. And, I even have that at least from time to time, right? Bliss is not necessarily a permanent state, but that ecstasy is a deep, necessary part of our beingness to experience ecstasy and bliss from time to time, at least. And so my path has led me to sort of weave those things together in a sometimes fun, but definitely deep way of like bringing together what does it mean to actually transform our relationship with money and transform our relationship to like joy and vulnerability. So, and I want that for you. Like I want that for everyone. And so as part of my process, I took it on. It's like, oh yeah, I mean, I am also the CEO of my company. And I'm the financial bliss mentor. I'm going to help you, bliss your money. And the other thing I want to say by way of introduction is our company is a B corporation. One of the things that feels like it's sort of at the crux of what goes on with people about money, and especially companies and money, is this idea that the only way that companies make money is sort of for their shareholders and by like crushing people and draining the life force out of them. And C corporations are designed to like focus on profits for the shareholders. And that's why many companies they're not sustainable and they're not kind of good for people, for the humans that work for them. B corporations are designed so that you can have a mission and have your mission be part of your metrics. So you can actually measure whether you're actually doing the work that you say that you want to be doing in your company. And I feel like that brings balance back to the conversation about money and having a business, where it's like, oh yes, I can value profits and I can value my mission or sustainability or whatever is on this hand as well, side by side.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. And thanks for adding that in. Amazing. Cool. Well, so I know a lot of folks are feeling weird in some way about earning money right now. Like either like they had a big drop in sales, or some people's businesses are just like booming. And then there's all sorts of guilt that could be associated with that. Like so many people don't have money right now. I feel like, when others, and I mean, this is not just now, right? Like there's always this issue of like where people feel guilty about earning more money when so many people have so little. And that might be amplified right now. That's just like one of many things. But I'm wondering if you could just speak to this for a moment.
Yeah, people feel guilty about money. And like under every single circumstance, I've seen people feel guilty about money. And the way that I think about it is money is an amplifier, like it amplifies your values. So when you're looking at, there is this idea where people are like, money is the root of all evil, right? But what's actually going on is it's amplifying the values of the people who have a lot of money, right? So when we let people with bad values, who aren't looking at sustainability, who aren't considering other people, even if it's just super selfish, self-centered values, right? it unbalances us, our world, our economy, our planet. And I have I hold deeply that good people with good value should have money and be using that money for good in the world. And I think this guilt comes from, we see role models of people who are using money badly. They're using money to cause harm. They're using money to get their way. They're using their money to make other people's lives difficult. And I think that really, like, is at the heart of what's going on for many people about money. They're like, I don't want to be a bad person. I don't want to be stepping on other people. I don't want to cause harm.
Right.
And those are all, like, good, reasonable things to be thinking about in terms of money. And what we know, I mean, many studies have shown that, like, people who are poor or who grew up poor are actually more generous than wealthy people. And the reason I'm telling you that is that if you're one of those people who is generous, right? By having more money, you can be more generous, right? I was, in fact, I will tell you a story. I was talking to someone I know who was a big executive of a big company whose name you would definitely know if I said it out loud. And we were talking about giving money. And he was talking about who he's giving money to and how he's evaluating giving money. And when we got down to it, he was like, yeah, I gave about $100,000 in the last political cycle. And he was evaluating things like, how blue is this candidate and how much difference would it make? And what are the most important races? And when it came right down to it, it's like he really wanted to make a difference with his money. And so he used it in such a way to do that. And it's like, when I think about the people in the world who really, like, are dying to make a difference, dying to make change, what they need is money, right? And that's the disconnect between, I want to, I want to make impact, and I have this difficult, upset, rejection, overwhelm, judgment of money. But you can shift that alignment, right? Money is something that we created. And if you think of it like a tool, like, as if money were a hammer, right? Which I feel like this is a metaphor that's used for a lot of things. But, or money is like a computer. And it's like, there's all kinds of things you can look at on a computer, right? You get to make choices. But if you don't have the computer, you can't do the thing, right? If you don't have the money, you don't have the option of making that impact. Right. And so as your business grows, as your impact, as your intention for impact grows, your intention around money has to grow as well, because impact has to match your money goals. Your impact and your money goals have to match.
Right. Right. And like, there are a couple things I'll pull out that are sort of related, are like, our society is not actually set up to value the things that are actually important and sustainable. Like, right. The money is going to all these whacked out places, but we just think that's normal. So we think it's normal, like to just do shitty things with money, when in the reality, right. Like, we're actually changing the system and changing the culture when we're saying, like, yeah, I want to have money and use it for the right thing, right? Like, not that like capitalism can do no wrong. Like, there's a whole other conversation right. that we could have about that, but right. But you, as like a gift, someone who is like doing a business that is helping people, like, who is a generous person who wants to do good in the world, like, yeah, you're a person who should have more money and like feel great about that. But it takes a lot of like internal, like, work to really believe that,
because you're taught. Yeah, we're taught all these things about money, right? And the lessons that we learn very early about money create a blueprint inside of us about how we're going to be with money. And unless we become conscious of that and decide to make a change about it, those stories will just run us forever. Right. Yeah. Like, money is the root of all evil. If you believe that, you will let that story run you forever. Right. Right. And that's normal. Right. I want to really just say that there's nothing bad about that. This is letting your money blueprint run you is what almost everyone does. Almost everyone in the world has exactly that thing going on. So if that's what's happening, or that's what's happened to you in the past, nothing to worry about.
Right. And like literally everybody has a money issue.
Yeah.
Wealthy people have issues about having too much or not enough, as the same as people without actually enough money.
Yes.
Like it's
Yes.
everyone's got money issues. We
Yeah.
all have money issues.
Yeah.
And then so that actually reminds me too, like as someone's as someone's kind of growing their business, we have to kind of deal with these like layers of stuff, right? And I know for people here listening, like you're earning money in your business, right? And so you've gotten like past the starting gate, and it's like, okay, cool, money's coming in. So there's like some, okay, cool, I can do this, right? But probably there's also this stuff that comes up like, is this going to last or whatever? Like what
Yeah.
happens, and I've heard you say this a bunch of times, is like new level, new devil, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
even if you're at this, it's like, it's not like this stuff goes away. We're like constantly
Right.
but right
Yeah.
at all, right? So maybe you can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. So what I know, so there are definitely levels with money. And if we had more time, we can get into exactly what those levels are. But at every level where you sort of make a big jump, you're going to make both a practical jump and a mindset jump. Those things go together because they have to go together, right? Like, at some point, for example, if you're doing consulting, you're going to be full of consulting hours yourself. And so you're going to have to make some kind of jump to being more leveraged if you want to make more money, right? That's a one that lots of people talk about. But when you look at it, that is both a mindset. You have to start thinking about things differently. And that's a practical jump. You're going to have to learn to employ people. You're going to have to figure out how that works and who does sales and who does marketing and who does all this stuff, because you now need to be managing more things and more people. And the same thing is true of money. So, you're going to have to learn to think about money differently, and you're going to have to figure out how to act with money differently, because it won't just be you. Then you'll have staff. And so you have to, manage things. And every level that you get to, there's the reason it's a level is that you need new skills and new things. If it was all the same, you wouldn't have any problems, and you would already be making $10 million or whatever your goal is, right?
Right.
So the reason that you're not is because there are these pieces that you haven't mastered, that often are invisible until you run up against them. And then they're often not made visible until somebody else can see them for you, right? Because
Right.
so much is, it's hard to see the stuff that's in our own head.
Right, exactly. And so what ends up happening then is that we, like, if you like visualize a level, like we end up like kind of like in this spot,
Smacking
like
into
an
the
eddy,
ceiling.
right? Yeah, because there's a belief, and there's just not, we're not able to kind of get past that point without someone like taking an outside look and being like, hey, this is what I see happening. And so like that just speaks exactly to why we have you in this program, because I can teach all the strategy in the world, as could you, because you're also a strategist. But we can teach all the strategy in the world, but it doesn't, you can't implement and make it happen. And I wouldn't say can't, it's hard to do if you're still stuck, like not believing that you could possibly earn that much money, or that you could delegate things.
Yeah.
All these different things. And like you said, like really there's this practical piece. You have to learn the practical strategy skills and how to grow a team and how to delegate and how to all these things. But then you also just have to be really tuned into like, okay, what's my devil right now? What's keeping me held back on a more emotional, mental level?
Yeah. What's getting in the way? Because what will happen is, people talk about your comfort zone. And what's really happening is you have a range, you have like a comfort range, and you mostly kind of bounce off. And if you go above your range, you'll just kind of like fall right back down. This is actually how your brain is wired. It wants to keep you in a certain range. And people are rightfully call that your comfort zone. There's nothing wrong with staying in your comfort zone. Your comfort zone keeps you alive, right? It's a survival mechanism that your brain does. If you want to go outside of that, or you want to like up your range, you're going to need help with that. And that help ends up being a lot of mindset help. And I feel like people have ideas about what mindset is. Like they feel like they need, that it's just going to be like all talking about a thing and figuring out and solve a problem. But mindset is actually composed of a number of things, from getting information to, there's lots of like techniques and practices that actually can help you transform your mindset in some ways pretty quickly. If you're working with a practitioner who actually has skills and knows how to do it.
Right. And that's why I was saying in the intro, I was like, you can, like, there's ways to manage your money beliefs, but actually when I talk to you about this and when I do this kind of work, it's more about dissolving, right? Like actually in the present moment, releasing feelings of fear and scarcity,
Yeah.
and doing, it's more energetic work. It's not just like, oh, let's put a new story in our head, which also is helpful. Like I love
Yes.
having, creating a new money statement that's like much more empowering, and that's totally stuff that we do. But there's also this requisite, like, in the body energetic shift that has to happen too. And that's why I love the work that you and your coaches also
Yeah.
help people do. It's
Yeah.
energetic.
So I want to talk, I think, for a minute about resistance.
Mm.
And people are like, oh, I have resistance to this thing. And when I first started thinking about resistance, I used to think of it like drag, like when you're swimming and, it's easier to swim in a bathing suit than it is to swim fully clothed, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's drag, right? You're wearing your tennis shoes in the water and you're like, it's really hard to kick because you just like, there's too much stuff. And that there is resistance like that, but really resistance, what I notice is a lot of resistance is we have an energy about something. Like we have those statements, those beliefs in our brain, and they sort of make up this like wall around us. It's our energy, right? Our little bubble. And then when things are coming at us, like opportunities, our resistance is standing there and the opportunity comes up against it. And then you're like pushing on it, right? You're like pushing on the thing and it's pushing back. So it doesn't necessarily look like anything because it's sort of invisible when there's like that tension going out and going in, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you manage to resolve just kind of dissolve the resistance, then the opportunity or the money or the thing can kind of come towards you.
Right. And I'll give another example, because I've been working with Laurel, who is another financial bliss coach. And one of the things that this might so one of my issues is like I'm a Capricorn and I like to achieve things. And I'm like, I'm like a hard working, overachieving type. Like that's just how I run. I'm
same.
Let's call myself, I'm recovering, right? Like I do a lot, but it's my tendency. And so it can be hard for me sometimes because I'll set a goal and then get really intense with myself about like hitting that goal. And if I don't hit that goal, what does that mean about me, right? And so some of the work I've been doing is dissolving the stuff that's like around the goal, creating more space around the goal. So I'm looking at like, well, if there's a fear of failure or something, like, can I dissolve that feeling and just allow the goal to be the goal, just because I would like to achieve that, and not because I need to look a certain way, or I need to achieve a certain amount, or whatever it is. That stuff I can sit with that, and I can do some of this work to just let go of some of those kind of harsher energetics that make it like kind of yucky to hit goals, and then just like be really clean about like, no, this is what I want, this is where I'm going, and I don't have all this like kind of ego stuff like cluttered up around it that is making it like crunchy and hard, and also less likely that I'm going to actually achieve the goal, frankly.
Yeah, because there's stuff in the way.
Right.
And what happens in your brain is there's literal stuff. You have these neuronal pathways and things are happening. And every time you get excited or have a big emotion about that, more protein gets laid for or kind of against that idea. And when we're doing the work that we're doing, we can just dissolve those. We have some techniques that help release and let go of all of that stuff. And then literally when I do it, I literally find, because I do this work once or twice a week, every week. I've been doing it for years now. I just find that sometimes it's easier to think about that. It's easier to like, oh, I'm not worried about that. Oh, I have more energy. I'm just going to get up and do that. Oh, I'm less tired. Tired is one of the things that comes up for me as resistance. I'm less tired. Like, it feels magical, but we have a consistent, reliable way to make that happen, which I like. When I discovered it, I was so thrilled. I can't tell you. It was like, oh, I can make changes in my brain. I'm so excited.
Right. And these little releases, then you can move forward into something, and you can get to that new level. You can like experience something different. Yeah. It's super powerful work. So I have a couple more. We have a few minutes left. I have a couple questions. I wanted, maybe it might just be along the same lines, but I know that especially because of the moment that we're in, it's really easy to get into feelings of scarcity because because some people have actual experiences of like having less money now, or there's just the uncertain, there's always uncertainty, the massive uncertainty of this time, and what will happen. So maybe you can speak to a little bit about like how you work with people around scarcity when that comes up.
Yeah. So scarcity is, there are a couple different pieces to scarcity. And there's a great, like, there's a great book called Scarcity, why it means so much to have so little, why having so little means so much, which is a great book that talks about scarcity and how your brain actually gets around scarcity. And so I think of there as being kind of two kinds of scarcity. One kind is real scarcity, like, do you have enough money to actually buy food to eat? And then there's like invented scarcity. And most business owners I know, not all, but most, live in invented scarcity. So it has very similar effects on the brain. Like, it gives you this sort of tunnel vision and makes you like sort of unable to think about anything else. It makes you make weird short-term, or immediate decisions rather than being able to do long-term planning. It like literally can change the way that you think. And if you're in actual literal scarcity where you're like, I don't have enough money for food, I can't feed myself and my family, get some help, like reach out, get some help. There's all kinds of programs right now, especially, that can get you some actual real logistical, like, make sure you can feed yourself and your family and all that kind of stuff. And take care of that, because that is going to undermine, if that's going on, it's going to undermine any kind of mindset work we can do. It's going to be undermined by that. And then there's the what I think of more as invented scarcity. And I don't mean to say that you invented it on purpose or you made it up or you're trying to harm yourself or others. What's happening is, because the scarcity story is so strong in our culture and money is so reviled, especially in, like, if you're doing activist work or you're doing spiritual work, money is often very reviled, there's, lots of judgment on people who make money. I happen to love money. We created money. Like, right. I just love it. I think money is great. It's so useful, right?
So useful. Oh my God.
It's so useful. And so, I just find myself being like, yeah, I love money. It's so great. And if you're in invented scarcity, like, you have plenty of money, place to live, all this stuff, what's happening is, this has to do with the way you think and what your blueprint is. And the first, things that you start to look at is your money history and your money story, and why you're thinking about things in this way. Because so much of what's going on in our world or in our heads about money is actually stuff that other people put in it. And that is all totally shiftable, changeable, rearrangeable stuff. And I feel like just knowing that that is a thing that you can change can make a big difference, from because then you can start to look at it and allow the stories to be where they are. Because a lot of resistance is, another kind of resistance is, I'm just not going to think about that. I'm just not going to think about that. I'm going to avoid it. And then all the scarcity tunnel vision happens. And then you're like, I don't know why this is happening. And, things start to get really weird, because you won't just look at the stories and allow them and start to untangle and unfold them. Right. So those are the two kinds of scarcity that I have personally seen and experienced.
Yeah. Well, since we're trying to wrap up, I won't respond too much to that. I had one more question, because we were just having a conversation before this about how, like Briana said, she works with businesses on their profitability and bookkeeping, and she no longer does these services without also having mindset work as part of it, which I found wow, that's amazing. Like that's very telling and amazing. And so I think we've spoken already to like why that is, but I just think that that's cool, that that's like, that has to be a part of it, because like, and again, and same with Nourish, it's like, I don't want to like bring people through a whole process and give them all these great strategies if people are just going to like bump into their own stuff, right? And again, no judgment, right? Like, I bump into my stuff all the time, right? So we all do, but we all need to go get help in order to like expand out of that. So I wonder if there's like a quick thing you want to say about the concept of profitability? This is more on the kind of, practical end of the money spectrum.
Yeah.
But I wanted you to bring that in too, because that's also an important piece that, like, so if you're a business owner and you're earning money, like maybe you're making like 5-10K a month, great, but like you might not have, and hopefully you're keeping your book, doing some kind of bookkeeping, right? And most people are really doing at least some of that, right? And really don't feel bad if you haven't done that yet, but most people aren't thinking about profitability per se. So maybe you can just
Right.
that for a minute.
They do think about it, but they're not planning for it. It's just like, if you don't plan to, go to the gym, you're just not going to get there, right? It's not part of the plan. If you don't plan to go on vacation, if you don't plan to pay yourself, it's just not going to happen because it's not in your plan, right? It's not in your calendar. It's not in your chart of accounts. And so if you actually do really want to get profitable and you do want to change your relationship with money and be able to have the things that profitable people have, like saving accounts and retirement, be able to go on vacation, making sure that you're getting paid from your business, you have to plan for that. You have to actually put it in your chart of accounts. You have to make sure that you're putting it in all of the other kinds of business planning that you're doing, that you're not just being like, how can I get my next client, but you're really thinking about the fullness of your business and making sure that you put planning into your financial reality, but into your business planning day to day. Yeah.
Totally. Right. 100%. And like this is like an integral part of the Nourished Entrepreneur framework, is like we do this work around like creating meaningful financial goals that are based on what you actually want to create in your life. And too often I talk to women who are like, yeah, I'm earning enough. It's like, it's good. And and I'm like, okay, so I live in the Bay Area. I know not everyone I work with does, but I'm like, let's say I'm talking to somebody that lives in the Bay Area. I'm like, okay, so you're telling me that your revenues of $80,000 per year are like enough for you to live in the Bay Area and like save for retirement and like do anything else? I'm like,
right.
wow, like I'm glad you're grateful. Yes, that's great. Like we should be grateful for what we have. And yes, that's a lot more than many people will ever have. Yes. But that's not the full picture. And so like we start with like what do you really need? Like what's the vision? What do you need to, and sometimes this means going to a financial planner and like really going deep into that. But we want to have meaningful financial goals that are based on our lives, and then design a business model and a profit plan, like a map, a budget projection for like how that's going to happen every month, right? And that doesn't mean you're going to like hit the exact thing every month, but you're a hell of a lot more likely to do that if you have planned for it. Like you just said, like if you have mapped that out and you plan for it. And most people do the bookkeeping, which is going backwards, but most people do not do the projecting and the planning, which is the going forward. And that is like, that to me is a key to profitability, to really like starting to earn money in your business in a sustainable way. That's not like, and like, oh my God, I made 20K this month and like 3K and I'm having a heart attack, So,
you got to plan for it.
That. What?
You got to plan for it. I mean, I feel like the position people are often in is they're like, oh, I think I'm like the 80K, I think I'm making enough money. Right. But then they haven't really thought about, well, how much am I going to need to retire? And am I putting any of that away? And, if I put money in savings, is it actually staying there? They just are not thinking about it because their money, they go from 20K to 3K and like, it's all over the place. And so they're like, it should be enough, but shrug, I don't know. Right. And let's hope. Let's hope. And I'm not going to put my attention on it. Right. And again, so that creates its own like resistance because it's there. It's not like people don't know that they want savings or retirement. It's just that they are not putting their attention on it in any kind of way because they're afraid or they're avoidant or they don't have enough information or they're afraid something bad is going to happen and they've been being bad, doing a wrong thing, and that it's, maybe not recoverable or whatever those fears are. As soon as you start to look at them and unpack them and unfold them and do this mindset work, things start to shift by themselves, right? Because you start to have some awareness of it, and you can start to plan for it and make it happen. But if you're, stay in avoidance and stay in resistance, it's impossible to change as far as I can tell.
Totally. Yeah. Well, I think that's a good note to end on.
It's always good to hang out with you. Yeah.
Well, we're so glad we get to hang out more in the coming,
really good
months. So Yeah, so excited to have you, Briana. And yeah, for everybody listening, we'd love to have you come work with us. So check out
Yeah, get to
Garrett.
have these conversations with us.
Really fun, and apply it to your own business and get profitable and move the shit that needs to be shifted.
Yes.
That's terrible, but you know what I mean. So
It's true, but it's true.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
know? And it's like the turning that poop into gold, right? That's what happens is you have to go down into that stuff and like
Right.
figure it out and deal with it.
Right. Yeah. It is. It's a big deal to up level. It's a big deal to go from here to there, but like we're here to like give you the support to like go from here to there. And
Yeah.
it takes a lot of support.
It does.
So, yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Briana, and thanks everyone for watching. Take care.
Thanks. All right. Bye, everybody.